If you take a man's money, you'll have to take a man's. This is something that my grandmother, Helen Fuller, would say to us often. There would be times where I would hear her saying this to either my mother, my aunt, myself, or any other woman in our family. My grandmother, Helen, was born in the 1930s. This was after the Depression. 5 years, when she was 5 years old, her mother died. So from her perspective, I could understand why it was important for a woman to be autonomous, independent, and self-sufficient. So she would often give us that advice, especially I remember if someone had came over and was crying and explaining to her about the treatment they were receiving at the hands of a lover. And this would be a lover who was paying all the bills and buying her clothes and taking care of her financially. My grandmother would say, you thought you were slick allowing him to pay all the bills. But now you see you weren't slick because he takes you for granted. And from what I learned from that is I became to better understand what that really meant. If you take a man's money, you got to take a man's. Her message was timeless. I remember it then, and then several years later, the same saying was heard from her in a different context. It was in an employment context. Going to work, she felt like you should never want to work for someone else because they'll never pay you what you're worth. So again, if you take a man's money, if you take a company's money, you'll have to put up with whatever those things are that they'll be putting you through. So over the years, I've learned that it's sayings like these that are timeless. They apply today just like they applied 30 years ago, and they're universal. I bet you could think of some situations in your life where you realize that if you take a man's money, you have to take a man's